How does the tech that runs our world really work? We break it down to its fundamental truths. This is First Principles.
You are sitting on your couch on a Tuesday night. You press a button on a slim plastic remote, and instantly, a 65-inch window into another world opens up. You are watching a blockbuster film in 4K resolution. You see the pores on the actor's skin, the individual leaves in a forest, the chaotic motion of a car chase. It is crisp, it is fluid, it is immediate, and it is arguably the most impressive magic trick the modern world has to offer. We assume that what is happening is simple plumbing. We imagine the internet is like a massive pipe, and the movie studio is just pouring the video down the line like water, filling up your screen pixel by pixel, frame by frame. We think we are receiving a continuous stream of complete photographs, 24 of them every single second, flashing before our eyes to create the illusion of motion. But if that were actually true, the internet would collapse in seconds. The math of what you are watching is impossible. If you were to transmit that movie as a raw, uncompressed sequence of images, a single second of video would be so massive it would take minutes to download. A 2-hour movie would be thousands of gigabytes. No cable, no fiber optic line, and certainly no 5G tower could handle that load. And yet you are watching it right now without buffering. So, how is it possible? How do we take a digital elephant and squeeze it through a straw? The answer isn't just about faster cables or better computers. It is about a fundamental deception. The video you see on your screen does not actually exist. It is a hallucination, reconstructed by a set of rules that exploit the limitations of the human eye and the predictability of the physical universe. We are going to open the black box of video compression and find out how we turned the impossible into the everyday. To understand the magnitude of this problem, we have to look at what a video actually is. At its most basic level, a digital screen is just a grid of dots, pixels. On a standard high-definition television, you have roughly 2 million of them. If you step up to 4K, which is now standard for many streaming services, you are looking at over 8 million pixels. Every single one of those 8 million pixels needs instructions. It needs to know how much red, how much green, and how much blue to display. In the world of uncompressed digital data, describing the color of one pixel takes a specific amount of data, usually about 24 bits. That sounds small. But multiply that by 8 million pixels. That is one frame. Now, movies and TV shows create the illusion of movement by flashing these frames in rapid succession. The standard cinematic rate is 24 frames per second. Video games and sports often run at 60. So, let us do the math. 8 million pixels times 24 bits of color times 60 frames every single second. The result is staggering. A single second of raw, uncompressed 4K video is roughly 12 gigabytes of data. 1 second. That is the entire storage capacity of a smartphone from just a few years ago, consumed in the time it takes to blink. If you tried to stream a 2-hour movie in this raw format, you would need a connection speed thousands of times faster than the best fiber optic internet available in most homes today. If we had to send raw video, Netflix would not be a streaming service. It would be a hard drive shipping company. This was the cliff edge that engineers faced in the late 1980s and early 1990s. The digital revolution was beginning. We had compact discs for audio, and we were starting to see images on computers. But video was the holy grail. Everyone knew that eventually we would want to move pictures over wires. but the pipes were just too small. The telephone lines of the era were like trying to drain a swimming pool with a coffee stirrer. The engineers realized they could not solve this problem by making the pipes bigger. That would take decades of infrastructure work. They had to solve it by making the water smaller. They had to figure out how to take those 12 gigabytes of data and shrink them down to mere megabytes, without the human eye noticing the difference. They needed a codec. Codec is a portmanteau. It stands for compressor-decompressor. It is a piece of software, a set of mathematical rules that lives on both the sending end and the receiving end. The sender compresses the video into a tiny package, and the receiver, your TV or phone, decompresses it back into pictures. But how do you compress data? The first step is something you are probably familiar with, even if you don't know the name. It is called spatial redundancy. This is the same principle used to make JPEG images for websites. Imagine you are looking at a picture of a clear blue sky. In a raw file, the computer reads the top left pixel and says, "This pixel is blue." Then it goes to the next pixel. "This pixel is also blue." And the next one. "This pixel is blue." It does this for millions of pixels, dutifully recording blue, 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 over and over again. This is a waste of time. It is redundant. A smart compressor looks at that sky and says, "Wait a minute, I don't need to list every single pixel. I can just draw a box around the top half of the image and say, make all of this blue. Instead of millions of instructions, I have sent one instruction." This is the low-hanging fruit of compression. We look for patterns within a single frame. A white wall, a black suit, a patch of grass. Anywhere there is uniformity, we can use shorthand. We call this intraframe compression. It happens inside the frame. But here is the catch. Real life is rarely uniform. A forest isn't just a block of green. It is thousands of shifting shades of light and shadow. A human face isn't just a block of beige. It has texture and gradient. If we only used this spatial trick, we could shrink the video a little bit, maybe by half. But remember, we need to shrink it by a factor of 1,000. We need something more radical. We need to stop thinking about photographs and start thinking about time. The breakthrough came when engineers stopped looking at individual frames and started looking at the relationship between them. They realized that in any given video sequence, almost nothing changes from one fraction of a second to the next. Picture a news anchor reading the headlines. She is sitting at a desk. Behind her is a graphic of the globe. She is moving her mouth, maybe blinking, maybe tilting her head slightly, but the desk, it is frozen. The background, it is static, her shoulders barely moving. If you treat this video as a series of 24 separate photographs every second, you are sending the information for that desk and that background over and over and over again. You are screaming blue background, brown desk, 24 times a second, even though it hasn't changed. This is temporal redundancy, and eliminating it is the key to modern streaming. To exploit this, video codecs divide frames into 3 distinct types. This is the group of pictures structure, and it is the backbone of everything you watch. The first type of frame is called an iframe. Think of I for image. This is a complete picture. It is a regular JPEG. It contains all the data needed to show the scene. When you start a video, or when the scene cuts from one camera to another, the codec sends an iframe. It establishes the reality. But then, for the next few frames, the codec stops sending full pictures. It switches to frames. P stands for predictive. When your TV receives a frame, it doesn't get a picture. It gets a set of instructions. The stream essentially tells your TV, take the last picture I gave you, that iframe, and keep everything exactly the same, except for these few pixels that changed. Let's go back to our news anchor. The codec sends an iframe with the full studio. Then, for the next frame, it sends a tiny packet of data that says, keep the desk, keep the background, keep the shoulders. Just change the shape of the lips and lower the eyelids. Suddenly, we aren't sending 8 million pixels. We are sending data for maybe 50,000 pixels. We have just reduced the file size by 99% for that frame. This concept, sending only the difference between frames, is powerful, but the engineers realized it wasn't enough, because in movies, things don't just sit still, they move. Imagine a camera panning across a landscape. The mountains, the trees, the clouds, they are all shifting to the left. If you just compare pixel by pixel, every single pixel has changed color. The pixel that was a tree is now a cloud. The pixel that was a rock is now a tree. The difference method fails because the whole screen is different. This is where the math gets incredibly clever. This is the moment where the codec stops being a recorder and starts being a detective. It is called motion estimation. Instead of just saying, this pixel changed color, the encoder looks at the new frame and tries to figure out where the objects went. It breaks the image down into small blocks. It looks at a block of pixels representing a car in the first frame. Then, it scans the next frame and asks, did this block of pixels go somewhere? It finds the car has moved 10 pixels to the right. So, instead of rewriting the pixels for the car, the codec sends a vector, a mathematical arrow. It tells your TV, take that block of pixels from the previous frame and slide it 10 pixels to the right. Do not redraw the car, just move the car. This is the heavy lifting of video compression. Your streaming device, your Roku, your Apple TV, your phone, is constantly receiving these commands. Copy this block here. Slide this block there. It is a massive game of collage, cutting up the previous moment to build the current one. This is why sometimes, when a digital video glitches, you see a strange, muddy smear of pixels that creates a ghost effect. You are seeing the motion vectors applied to the wrong image. The codec is telling a block of pixels to move, but it missed the iframe that told it what the pixels were supposed to look like in the first place. It is moving furniture in a dark room. So we have spatial compression, grouping colors together. We have temporal compression, only sending changes. And we have motion vectors, telling the computer to slide objects around rather than redraw them. But there is one final layer to this puzzle, a layer that relies not on math, but on biology. Even with all these tricks, the file sizes for high-definition video are still massive. To get them down to streamable sizes, we have to start throwing things away. We have to delete data. This is the difference between lossless and lossy compression. A zip file on your computer is lossless. When you unzip it, you get back exactly what you put in bit for bit. You have to. If a spreadsheet loses a few bits, the numbers change. The data is ruined. But video is different. Video is consumed by a human brain, and the human brain is easily tricked. Our eyes are not perfect cameras. We have two types of photoreceptors, rods and cones. Rods are great at detecting brightness and contrast, light and dark. Cones detect color. Here is the kicker: we have far more rods than cones. Evolutionarily, this makes sense. It is much more important to see the outline of a predator in the bushes, contrast, than it is to know exactly what shade of green the predator is, color. Our vision is high definition for brightness, but surprisingly low definition for color. Video engineers exploit this ruthlessly. It is a technique called chroma subsampling. In a video stream, the image is split into two channels: luma, brightness, and chroma, color. The codec keeps the luma channel at full resolution. Every pixel gets a brightness value. But for the chroma channel, the codec literally throws away 3/4 of the data. It might take a block of 4 pixels and only record the color for one of them, then just smear that color across the other 3. The computer knows the data is missing. A spectrometer would know the data is missing. But you don't notice. Your eye sees the sharp edges provided by the brightness channel, and your brain paints in the color. Assuming it is high definition, we are transmitting a black and white drawing with a very sloppy watercolor wash over it, and your brain tightens it up into a photograph. This brings us to the most surprising realization about streaming. When you watch a movie on Netflix or YouTube, you are not watching a recording of reality, you are watching a reconstruction. The device in your hand is receiving a script, a very detailed, very fast script. It says, start with this reference image. Now smear the color a bit because the human won't notice. Now for the next frame, don't draw anything new. Just slide that car to the right and darken the background. Now for the next frame, hold everything still. Your device is frantically painting these pictures, following these instructions, predicting motion, and filling in gaps, 24 or 60 times a second. It is a continuous, high-speed act of prediction and hallucination. This leads us to the unseen giant of this technology, the one principle that makes the modern era of 4K streaming possible, which goes beyond just clever sorting of pixels. It is the concept of bidirectional prediction. We talked about iframes, the full picture, and frames, predicting forward from the past. But modern codecs, like the ones used for 4K and YouTube, use something called B-frames, bidirectional frames. This is where it gets mind-bending. A B-frame looks at both the past and the future. To encode a specific second of a movie, the computer needs to see what happens after that second. When your computer plays a video, it doesn't just process the moment you are watching. It is buffering ahead, looking at frames that haven't happened yet in the timeline. Let's say a door is opening in a movie. In frame 1, the door is closed. In frame 10, the door is fully open. A B-frame at position 5 can look backward at the closed door and forward at the open door. It can calculate the average between them. It can say, I am halfway between these two realities. This allows for incredible efficiency. Instead of describing the door opening pixel by pixel, the codec just says, transformation from A to B, 50% complete. It interpolates the reality. But this means that to watch a live stream, there is always a trade-off. You can never have true, instantaneous real-time video with high compression. To use B-frames, to use that future knowledge to save data, you must have a delay. You must wait for the future to arrive so you can compress the present. This is why your live sports stream is always 30 seconds behind the real game. The system is buying time to look into the future, so it can compress the present efficiently enough to fit down the wire. We have built a system that trades time for space. We accept a delay in reality so that we can transport a high-definition version of it across the world. So, where does this leave us? We started with a simple question. How do we fit the massive data of visual reality into the small pipes of the Internet? The answer is that we don't. We realize that transmitting reality is inefficient. Instead, we transmit the recipe for reality. We discovered that the world is redundant. Skies are blue, rooms stay still, and objects move in predictable paths. We discovered that our eyes are imperfect, forgiving us for smearing colors as long as the edges are sharp. We built a system that relies on the assumption that the future is like the past, and that the things we see are mostly just echoes of what we saw a split second ago. Every time you stream a video, you are witnessing a silent agreement between the mathematician, the engineer, and the biologist. They have agreed on exactly how much truth you need to see to believe the illusion, and how much they can throw away. It turns out you can throw away almost everything. The ghost in the machine isn't the data we see, it's the intelligence that knows what we don't need to see. We have conquered the tyranny of bandwidth, not by building bigger pipes, but by understanding the predictable nature of our world and the limitations of our own perception. We stream the math, and our brains build the movie.
You've been listening to First Principles. Until next time, stay curious.